mental illness, a command from church, or the resurrection of Count Dracula and Blade. These are the senseless crime stories of Christopher Sibanda and Alois Nduna, and you are watching Senseless Crime Stories Africa, and I am Tembisa Chawula. Dubbed the vampire killers of Zimbabwe, Christopher Sibanda and Alois Nduna were both caught drinking the blood of women they had gruesomely slain. In 2018, in a village called Sikeu, Christopher Sibanda, then aged 34, brutally slit the throat of an elderly woman, Subususiwo Sikawuke, before sucking her blood from the open wound. Subususiwo had been walking home from hospital where she had been to collect her medication before she ran into the bloodthirsty man who struck her several times with a log before allegedly cutting her throat with an unnamed sharp object. The man was then caught red-handed sucking the elderly woman's blood from her neck, even pouring some in a pot to drink later. Assistant Inspector for Matebele Land North Eglon Ngala confirmed the murder took place around 2 p.m. that Wednesday along the main road from Ghana Mission Hospital to Sikeu village. Villagers who embarked on a manhunt apprehended him and surrendered him to police, who placed him in custody. Edward Marijeni, a local councillor, confirmed this recount, adding the arrested day walker was known to sometimes lose his mind and had not been receiving any treatment for mental health issues. Marijeni added that villagers who discovered him at the crime scene alleged he was sucking the victim's blood after finding him sticking his mouth on the wound. A manhunt ensued where the suspect was handed over to the police. This was not the first case of vampirism to shake the country. In 2015, Alois Nduna, then aged 26, confessed to raping and killing 13 women after drinking their blood like a vampire. He operated in the areas of Hwange, Bulawayo, and Masvingo of central and southern Zimbabwe. Police told the Chronicle that Nduna had been using several identities to carry out his crimes, one of his aliases being Jackson Moyo. He was arrested in a nightclub in Mvuma, central Zimbabwe. Nduna, aka Moyo, was born in 1989 in the Matanga village under Chief Jiri in Gokwe South. He was described as having a normal childhood with his parents very much involved in his life. His unusual behavior began at the age of 4. He would get out of bed and travel 17 kilometers on his own to his grandfather's house. According to his father, he began drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana at the age of 9 and hung out with older children. At the age of 10, Nduna began hearing voices in his head telling him to go into the woods at night. He also began suffering from constant nosebleeds. His parents were aware of this, but being from a simple background, they didn't take him to doctors and psychiatrists, but took him to traditional faith healers and witch doctors who only scammed the family. His family would then take him to prophet.magaya, a locally famous prophet and celebrity in Zimbabwe at the time. The prophet began conducting healing prayers on Alois at his church PhD Ministries in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe. Nduna would escape this church only to be discovered at another church outside the city. Although not related to this case, it's worth noting that Prophet Magaya would later be faced with 3 separate rape allegations. In 2010, Nduna graduated from school as a painter and songwriter. His episodes continued, resulting in his father taking him to another local celebrity prophet, Emmanuel Makandiwa. He was kept in the prophet's care for several months, who briefly cured Nduna's nosebleeds, but in 2012 they would resurface. That same year, his father would receive several calls from different hospitals stating his son had been assaulted or involved in accidents. When his father inquired about these incidents, Nduna tried to attack him. This was the last straw for his family, cutting all ties with him in 2012. Nduna became a self-confessed Satanist and claimed he was told by his church that the blood he sucked from his victims would make him a strong person. True Count Dracula style. The state, led by Pride Gomera, alleged that on October the 9th, 2013, Nduna was hired by 4 siblings, Precious, Sheila, Portia, and Venega Chimonga, to kill their aunt Ruramai Zifungo, whom they accused of practicing witchcraft and causing untold suffering to the family. Gomera told the court that the siblings offered to pay a bull for the service. Nduna then told the court that 2 days later, on October the 11th, he went to Zifungo's homestead, forcibly entered her house, and attacked her with an unknown object, cracking her skull. Gomera said after committing the crime, Nduna was paid his bull, then fled to Zambia to evade arrest. On March 23, 2014, Nduna raped and murdered milk vendor Privilege Mutara and allegedly dumped her body in a nearby bush after sucking her blood. This would mark the beginning of his killing spree. The court would continue to hear about his other crimes. How he attempted to kill Gladys Gwasunda, who worked at Chicken Slice in Mvuma, by tripping the woman to the ground and choking her until a passerby heard her screaming and came to her rescue. It is said he tried to silence her by pouring sand down her throat. Next was Beauty Hove, a woman from the mining village Mashava, who had her blood sucked by the vampire until she died. On March 19, 2015, the vampire struck again, murdering 37-year-old Ruth Ndlovu. He threw her to the ground, tore off a piece of her coat, and strangled her to death with it. Her husband soon discovered her body in the bushes after she did not return home. His next victim was Rita Piri, whom he attacked along a footpath between Svishavane District Hospital and Prince Street in Svishavane on April 14 after proposing to her and paying her $3 for sex, to which she agreed. The two went to a secluded place where they had coitus before Nduna strangled her and dumped her body in a nearby bush. A passerby came across her body in an advanced state of decomposition. Nduna would use the same method with an unidentified woman he met in Komoil in Svishavane, strangling her after raping her and sucking her blood. On April 29, now bloodthirsty Nduna approached an unidentified sex worker, strangled her, drank her blood, and dumped her body in a nearby bush before going on his way. On his way home, he met Soneni Moyo, who was at Mberengwe turn off along Svishavane Buluwayo Highway, and he proposed to her. He then offered to walk her home, and 4 kilometers into their walk, he strangled her and dumped her body in a nearby bush. He stole her money and 2 cell phones, which he sold in Masvingo. April 30th, 2015, the vampire attacked another woman, Marceline Shoko, and left her for dead after sucking her blood until she lay unconscious. Shoko was discovered by yet another passerby who rushed her to hospital. Shoko would later identify Nduna as her attacker. He continued committing similar crimes in Hwange, Buluwayo, Chipinge, and Masvingo. Now one of the most wanted killers in Zimbabwe, police hatched a plan to arrest the vampire killer. They tracked one of the cell phones stolen from his victims, Privilege Mutara, and found it on a sex worker who claimed the phone was given to her as payment by Nduna. The police kept her under surveillance should the vampire killer contact her again. During the time of his arrest in a nightclub, police discovered several fake IDs on his person. Nduna confessed to the murders and claimed to have killed 13 more victims, but the confession was dismissed by police as fabrication due to lack of evidence or details about the additional crimes. He was taken to Mvema police station. At the police station, the vampire killer was allegedly still vomiting up blood all over the walls and floor and licking it up in the holding cells, sending police officers fleeing from Vuma police station in fear. He even appeared in court with fresh blood stains on his shirt, the source of the blood being a mystery. During the trial, Nduna said he was introduced to Satanism by a group of Nigerian businessmen when he was in Zambia. One of the men had hired him as a painter, and he was soon invited into the businessman's home, who led him into a room with a portrait whose eyes could move and followed him around. The men then brought out 3 bowls of blood and forced him to drink from one of the bowls. They told him that this was his initiation into the satanic cult and that from now on he was required to make sacrifices in order to make money. Nduna would go on to state that he had wanted to flee the compound numerous times but grew accustomed to the blood rituals and way of life, returning to Zimbabwe with supernatural powers he had gained from these men. Nduna terrorized inmates and wardens at Kami prison using the same methods. He would wake up with 666 inscribed in blood on his back, where authorities claimed he could not have done it himself. Nduna said he traveled outside the prison every night using supernatural satanic powers. 2 psychiatrists testified that Nduna was mentally unstable. Reports found him fit to stand trial. This resulted in him being sent to Mlondolozi Mental Health Institution for further treatment. Justice Takuva ruled that Nduna could not be held legally responsible for the murders because of his mental state. Takuva, however, did add that Nduna was a danger to his family and society and needed to be taken away. So on February 27, 2017, the court therefore returned a special verdict of not guilty in terms of Section 29 of the Mental Health Act. 2 years later, in 2019, he was discharged after 2 years of improvement, having stopped acting violent and no longer claiming to be a Satanist. Nduna, however, opted to remain in the institution despite being discharged. On December 10, 2019, another patient named Rufus Hadiko, who had been sentenced for 2 counts of murder, approached Alois and began beating him several times with a metal hoe before being pulled away by orderlies and guards. Rufus would be charged for a 3rd murder. It is said while beating Nduna up, Rufus threatened to kill other patients if they told authorities about what they did. What that is, we will never know. There has been no update on his case, nor is there evidence of the two ever knowing each other before the gruesome encounter. Ritual killings and human sacrifices happen in many, if not all, African countries. Most cases being reported in countries such as Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So if you found today's story interesting, you know what to do. Subscribe if you haven't, like this video, and make sure you suck the living blood out of that bell so you don't miss any of our future uploads. We upload once a week. If you are interested in bizarre, senseless crime stories from Africa, next time you're in the mood, do hit us up. I'm Thembisa Chawula, and until next time.